One. Okay, there it goes. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Reason Reborn. I am your host, Black Magus, here with my co-host, Cardiac Sumo. Say what's up to the people.
What's up, people? Happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween. We are doing this on Halloween, which I could go into a religious rant right now about that just to mess with people, but I'm gonna leave that alone. Enjoy the holiday. If you're an adult, get drunk, have fun, dress up, and be wild. By the way, have you been seeing people's costumes, like celebrities' costumes?
No. Is there anything good out there?
LeBron James is Pennyworth, and he's a damn good Pennyworth. Like, Steph Curry he became Jigsaw, like the doll that they show for Jigsaw to represent him. Steph Curry rode to the game as Jigsaw.
So people are. I think on Friday I went to like a little get together and like I lazily dressed up for the first time, and I was Nightwing, and nobody knew who the fuck that was. These uncultured swine out here.
You need to hang around more geeks.
Apparently, I don't know. I don't have enough friends or something. I don't have enough nerd friends to hang out with. I couldn't believe it. Like one girl asked me if I was like a version of Batman or something. I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore.
Wow. You got to show me that costume when you get. I want to see that. Is it on your Twitter feed?
No, I mean, it was just like a T-shirt with like the Nightwing logo and like a mask or whatever it was.
Oh, okay.
I'm not quite in shape to go with the whole tights and everything, you know.
I mean, you could just put on like the muscle bodysuit. That would have worked.
Yeah, it feels lazy. Like I've always had this dream of like dressing up as Jax's Mortal Kombat, but I won't do it until I'm like ripped as shit. So.
All you need is the bionic arms, and you're good.
He had the muscles, dude.
Yeah, he kind of was. Even old Jax in the other Mortal Kombat was like ripped. But yeah, you'll pull off.
What's his motivation? Been eating right, working out, dropping weight. So.
Oh, that's good. That is very, very good. I need to get to the workout part of things. Once I get cleared, that's my goal is to start working out.
It'll help distract you from everything we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, because I either would have that to like relieve stress or alcohol, and the workout part is much more healthier and better for me.
Sure.
Or I just need to find me a woman and just have like a huge amount of sex every day to just ignore this. You know, like tell me, girl, that Trump's not president or something like that. Yeah, to get that shit off my mind.
That is the weirdest bed talk ever. Gonna fuck you like Trump fucking America.
That would be some interesting role play right there. Oh man. Anyway, let's move on and get to the show. Now, you have the forum because you need to make some things clear to people, apparently. And I need you guys to listen because this is going to be a good example of why you should never peg people into a certain like box or a hole. Okay, so the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, I'll try not to go too long, but yeah, Megas and I were talking, and it occurred to me I didn't really introduce myself much. I think at best I had lazily said that I was either liberal or progressive or something like that. And I was thinking about it later throughout the week, and it occurred to me that if I had said something like that, it probably wasn't clear to most of you what I mean. You know, people on the left use liberal and progressive in a more positive manner. People on the right use it in a more of a derogatory manner. And throughout that, there's a lot of different ideas. So I thought I would just go through my mindset on political and social things and just describe, you know, where I'm coming from with a lot of those. So let's see. As for who I am, I'm not a political studies kind of guy. I'm not an economist or anything. Professionally, I'm a software engineer, so, you know, fucking nerd. Apparently. That's why I dressed as Nightwing and nobody knew who that was. Religiously, I'm an atheist. I might have mentioned it at some point. And politically, you know, I did use the word progressive, so I'm on board with LGBTQ plus rights, very interested in women's rights, anything along with race and so on. But I have to be careful with that kind of stuff, right? So, for example, I'll tend to say that I'm fine calling myself a feminist, right? Plainly, just very on board with equal rights for gender, for every gender and whatnot. But it occurs to me that a lot of people define feminism in a certain way, and it's not the best way. So there are many people who say they're feminists who are pretty much anti-man. They espouse certain theories of gender, like they believe gender is purely socially constructed. I don't. Many aspects of gender are social constructs, but some of them are just rooted in biology. There's a lot of good literature on that I could probably point to. Gun control, I'm not pro-gun, but I am not going to say that we should ban all guns or even act like that's particularly possible with the amount of guns we have in circulation right now. A lot of people would say, you know, look at countries like Australia, they have a full gun ban, not taking into account the amount of guns we already have going around in the country and whatnot. So it seems to me when people use certain terms like liberal or conservative or right and left, they really mean like a particularly strict set of ideas, and I don't necessarily mean that. So if you guys hear me use certain words to describe myself, you might want to push further to see what I really think about them, or I'll try to define them a little bit more. So a good example, you mentioned like a little religious rant. Whenever I ask somebody what their religion is and they say Christian, is a good example, I always still ask them what they believe, because saying that you're a Christian means pretty much fucking nothing. Like it could mean anything from you believe in the literal truth of the Bible to your family is religious. Like I said, I'm an atheist. I pretty much always have been, but I called myself Christian specifically because I was in a Christian family. I just kind of identified that way. It could mean that you just have some vague sense that there's something magical about the universe without any of the particulars of the Bible. So it could mean any range of things. And I think that's true with many political viewpoints. It could mean any range of things. So I'll try to be more precise, and you guys will probably get to know what I think about many political and social issues as we go through. I don't know if there's any particular example you wanted me to touch on, but it can be quite difficult when we use some of these words because they're not always very exact, and I fear using them. Like when I say I'm a feminist, I'm not ashamed to say that, but I know what most people think I mean when I say that, and it's not any particular crazy ideas. And I could say that with like many other things. But
okay.
You're about to say something?
No, I was just like thinking how we were having that conversation about how you're either like it's hard one way or hard the other way, that people don't let you play around in the middle ground, because if you say a certain word, like you just said, say you're liberal, okay, you're just so far to the left that you just don't care about anything that anybody who claims to be on the right cares about, and vice versa. And it's not always that simple. Just really quick, the religious rant thing I was talking about was just with Halloween, and I'm not trying to spoil Halloween for anybody, but I was just at work, and people would come in, and we have a lot of church going people, and they were all saying Happy Halloween, and something that just struck me really quick was like, it's kind of funny because Halloween and stuff like that was looked at as pagan rituals and holidays and things like that, you know, things that weren't, you know, Christian, that weren't religious, they were evil things. You know, we dress children up as witches and warlocks, but there was a time where this country, if they thought you were a witch, would burn you. But now it's okay for you to represent this thing that was, for religious sake, was a symbol of pure evil and needed to be expunged from the world. And it's just like, I just find it like weird, because the church worked so hard against the holiday and against the images that we represent with the holiday. But now we're in a time where, you know, everybody says Happy Halloween, regardless of how religious they are, and indulge in the holiday, you know? So
I think it goes back to, you know, what people mean when they use those words. Some people will say they're Christian, but they don't read the Bible or believe in the literal truth of the Bible. You know, I've probably read more of the Bible than they have. What they really mean is that they might culturally or familiarly associate with Christianity, or, you know, maybe they grew up around a religious family and their idea of the religion is just, hey, there's, you know, some magic in the universe, there's a being that loves you, like very vague ideas. And I think that vagueness of people's beliefs allow them to, you know, do things like you said that seem to contradict their religion, but they don't really have very precise things that they adhere to in their religion. They just are vaguely believing in something very non-descriptive. So I would agree it seems a little hypocritical or weird, but when you look at the way a lot of people became religious, you know, maybe they were just raised that way, or the way they practice or what they claim to believe, it's usually pretty loose. It's loose enough to allow pretty much anything.
Yeah, and I think with some, it's loose to the point where they use religion as a matter of convenience, because it is convenient. You know, you see the political arguments with religion. It is convenient to denounce abortions and things like that. But, you know, they conveniently let slide certain things like, you know, not giving people health care, which the Bible is supposed to teach you to, you know, love each other and take care of each other and all of that, you know, and do right by each other. Yet they'll do these things that are pretty questionable and, you know, you would consider pretty immoral. So it's just a weird thing. And for some reason, Halloween just all of a sudden struck me as that, because a bunch of, like, you know, church going people, like devout churchgoers, came into work and was talking about Happy Halloween. And it just was like weird, because you denounce everything. Those were the type of people they were, like, just like the I denounce everything and blah, blah, blah type people. So I don't know.
If it's worth noting, I am pro-choice for the most part. I've heard most arguments in favor of being pro-life are pretty weak. I've heard one that was, I'm still mulling it over in my head. I'm not convinced by it yet, but it was somewhat reasonable. So just as an example of where I stand on some of those issues, I'm not immovable. You know, let's move on from that, because I could talk on that for a while. It would take a little while for me to really explain my viewpoint.
So next week the topic is pro-life. Is that what we're saying?
I can mention it some other time, but
you're gonna commit to the pro-life thing. Oh gosh, that would be a weird topic, because living in DC, I see some wild shit in reference to that topic. Like, some really out there things happen in downtown DC. But moving on, just to go over just a couple of the topics, because we don't really have a general topic today. And that's my fault, only because seriously, y'all, I'm confused, and I'm kind of upset, and I'm sad, and I'm frustrated, and I just don't know what the fuck is going on in this, like, goddamn country anymore, in this world anymore, because it's just way too much stuff going on that is crazy.
I thought that was the topic. Like, it's Halloween, we send a bunch of scary shit at you at once, and then you get overwhelmed.
Well, I guess that's what it is.
I thought it was like a thematic episode.
Yeah, I think it has become that now that you said that. You have basically pegged the theme is, we're going to scare the shit out of you about how fucked up this place is, I guess.
You sent me a bunch of articles to look over, and I remember, like, on Friday I went to this haunted house, and there was, like, a bunch of scary things coming at you at once, and I felt like that same feeling there, like, what the fuck? It's coming from the left, it's coming from the right. I feel like something's breathing up behind me.
Yeah, so first we start off, of course, if you haven't heard, there was a controversy with the Trump administration. Ain't that a surprise? Where a contract for repair of electrical services in Puerto Rico was sent out to a company called Whitefish. Now, why was this a big deal? Because this Montana-based company was a company that housed, like, I don't know if this was true, but I remember hearing somebody make the joke that it's a company that only has 3 people under its employment. It's a very, very small company in a very small town of Montana, but they were known to have some connections to the Trump campaign, because I believe the head of the Department of Energy had a relationship with their owner. And so somehow this company that was ill-equipped, not the company that you would think that they would go to, not that I know who's the best companies for people to contract to do a repair on the country's electronic infrastructure, but they were pegged as the ones and given a multi-million-dollar contract to fix the problems in Puerto Rico. And of course, once people found out the connection to the Department of Energy, they had a fit, rightfully so, because why would you hire such a company out of the blue that has none of the resources? I mean, I guess they could have got the resources with the money, but they had none of the resources. Yet, out of the blue, they trumped, excuse the pun, but they trumped all these companies out there that were better equipped and more experienced in this type of stuff. It was weird. And since, just to be up to date and current, since the whole outcry, the contract was pulled, but there's now an FBI investigation going against this whole contract deal to find out if there was some type of behind the scenes handshake type of illegal deal making being done for them to get the contract in the first place. So it's like, okay, that's number one. What is your thoughts on that?
Well, first, I would love for somebody to give me a $300 million contract for anything. Like, that sounds pretty fucking sick. I haven't looked too much into this. There's so much going on here. I am concerned with what this will reveal. One of the point, I'm concerned that we might lose sight of the fact that Puerto Rico is in a very bad state here.
Yeah, they are.
And that's the real tragedy with this, is that we have an issue like this going on, this sort of probably illegal, illicit sort of activity going on, and there are still people suffering, and we're wasting time with this sort of thing. It's pretty saddening.
It is. Hopefully they'll go through the proper channels and do the right thing and find. Like, why didn't you just send the fucking Army engineering corps like you normally do for stuff like this to help? Why are you contracting? Like, I don't know. Or if you're going to contract somebody, contract somebody.
I should have updated my LinkedIn. Maybe I could have got a shot at that contract. Apparently it doesn't take much. What the fuck?
I guess. I don't know. And then Congress, moving on to the next subject, is moving forward with constructing, and hopefully for them, not for us, because a lot of bullshit is going to come with this, as usual, a new tax reform bill, which one of the highlights was there's a big push to remove SALT. If you don't know what SALT is, that's it's basically state and local taxes. Everybody, if you ever paid attention to your tax returns, you know that you get a reduction for state and local taxes on it. They're trying to abolish that, which means that people of a certain income, mostly the lower income, won't get that reduction to help them get a better tax return. That means that you will pay more as someone from the middle class on down in your taxes once you file. So because that reduction is gone. And that can make a big impact on a lot of people's incomes, because right now people are always saying the middle class is no more. And it's partially because being middle class isn't what it used to be. I know back in my day, being middle class was something that you strived for. Now it's something you kind of hope for, because it's hard to survive being middle class, let alone below that. But you at least want to be middle class because you feel like you got a fighting chance now. And taking away reductions like that would just mess up things for a lot of people. Of course, if you're in the higher tax bracket, you're fine anyway. You get as many breaks, and of course they're working on different breaks for companies and all that, which makes it worse. And it's just, but this whole thing, I know a lot of people will look at it and be like, well, it's not a big deal. Should think about this and pay attention to what they do with tax reform, because this can affect how you live like seriously, how you live over the next 3 to 4 years if they pass the things that they want into it.
These guys are very motivated, I will say. Like, they do not take a break on this tax reform thing here, but it is an impressive amount of commitment, and it's hard to pay attention to with everything else going on here. But like you said, it's very important.
Yeah, and that's the problem with all the craziness going on. Things like this slip through the cracks, just like the whole deal where they passed a bill to make it harder for people to sue credit card companies and credit bureaus for like what Experian just did, where they let a lot of people's information loose. Now it's harder to enact lawsuits against them if they do these things, or if a credit company cheats you or something like that.
I don't understand. Well, before I touch that leak or that security breach, we as a society need to understand that cybersecurity is fucking important, because I feel like a lot of us do not respect how critical it is. You see a lot of organizations, they'll use out-of-date software, operating systems that are like 10 years old. I remember going to some, I can't remember where it was, but some, government-based facility, and I'm looking, at the screen, it's like Windows 95 or some shit. And it's like, where is the concern for cybersecurity? You guys are way too fucking lax on something that matters. And I would criticize the tech industry a little bit for this too, for not caring enough in some regards, but we need to get on that. But as far as that tax thing, I don't understand the Republican motivation a lot. I mean, they're very hardcore on this, Well, you can touch on that a little bit more, but they just seem very, they throw out the same lines, like, got to get government out of this. Blatantly interested in, pretty much helping the well-to-do people who are already making a lot of money. There's just this, I don't want to, be unfair to them, but it just seems like not very strong moral motivations here for a lot of these people.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problem with this is, one, I don't know if they really are going to try to push for Trump's philosophy behind this. He basically wants it more like the 80s, in the quote-unquote trickle-down economic system, where if you give the rich the breaks, they will reward you by giving money back to the system willingly. And it's always been such a flawed system, because it's predicated on people with lots of money being willing to give back some of that money on their own free will. And we've seen through history, most people who get lots of money want to keep that money. They don't want to get rid of it. Even if it's way more money than they need, they're not just going to give you like $100 million because they got $500 million and they're comfortable. You know what I mean? It's stuff like that. So
it doesn't make sense for a business to want to do that. A business should want to become more streamlined, more efficient, so it can hire less people and spend less money so that they can keep more of it. That's not the logical motivation of a business to spend money.
Exactly, but there's always this philosophy that if we give the big people a break, they'll re-inject more money, they'll hire more people, they'll spend more on resources for their employees and stuff like that. And it's just not a true thing. You get those rare companies that are willing to do that, to balance things out that way, but more times than not, they're looking at it as an opportunity to put more money in their pockets. And it's always been that. And I don't understand why people would believe. I mean, I guess if you're a rich person, I understand why you would believe in that philosophy. But anybody who's not, to think that that's a sound strategy is ridiculous. And we've already had the health cuts, all of that. They're already removing like different laws, making it harder for people to get health care, making it more expensive once you are able to get to the point where you can get health care. Things like that. And now they're cutting away money from tax reductions for people that can help them. That may be the difference between paying for some of their medical expenses or not, or just help to infuse more money into their pockets so they can put more into the economy. Like people are always crying about, like, we need people to spend more. Well, I don't have any money if if you're taking it away from me. You're taking money away from me.
Right.
I can't spend what I don't have. And it's just weird. It's just crazy.
That's why I say I question the motivation, morally speaking. So, you have these ideas of fiscal conservatism. You don't want the government touching this or controlling the money here, blah, blah, blah. And there can be some merit to that type of conservatism, I suppose. But that's not what a lot of these guys seem to want. They just very blatantly want to help the rich. I can't, even my kindest interpretation of a lot of their behavior, I wouldn't necessarily call just conservatism in any broad sense. It's just, let's get the rich some more money or make them pay less money. Like,
yeah,
it is very weird, on the nose. It's despicable, I guess. Again, I don't want to come off as unfair or cruel or harsh, but this is not what I tend to think of when I think of conservatism or even necessarily republicanism. This isn't right behavior for a lot of them. That healthcare thing is another huge thing. They are hardcore on repeal and replace with that shit, but
yeah,
that takes a certain sort of callousness to be able to do that without any real regard for the people who would suffer from that.
Yeah, and now you have the president coming out and saying today that he needs them to pass that bill by Thanksgiving, which may seem like peculiar, but he actually has motivation to get that passed because we might not have a president by Thanksgiving if things go the way they're going now. And I'm sure a lot of you guys know what I'm talking about. So over the weekend, there were rumors and sources saying that Robert Mueller, who's heading the FBI investigation on possible Russian tampering into the election, and whether or not the Trump administration worked hand in hand to help derail Hillary Clinton's campaign. Well, there were indictments announced being handed down, and of course, we all got the news that basically Paul Manafort, who was a key member of the Trump administration who helped him with this run his campaign, that he was turning himself in. That we all pretty much figured by Sunday night, okay, this Monday morning we're going to hear Paul Manafort is indicted, for such and such, and this turned him in. It was kind of like, okay, cool. But then it grew and they said, no, it's indictments. So then we're like, okay, what? So who else is going? And then it was like, it's the first of the indictments. It's like, okay, how big is it going to get? Well, we got the first bomb dropped, as not only was Paul Manafort indicted, but Rick Gates, another prominent member of the campaign, was indicted. Both of them have pleaded not guilty. But a third member, and his name is so weird because I swear it's the name of the guy from Webster, George Papadopoulos. And seriously, y'all, look up Webster. I swear that's his name. George Papadopoulos is the name of Webster's adopted father. I kid you not. But anyway, but he was not only indicted, he pleaded guilty to whatever it is that he was indicted. So you got two key members who helped run the campaign, who have a lot of information. And you have another key member who pretty much, said he was guilty, which in my mind, I don't know about you, says that he plead. I think he made a plea deal, and he's going to snitch on everybody because he already did a statement where he talked about different things already. So that man's taking everybody down because he was like, you know what? If I'm going down, we all going down. And if I'm Manafort and I'm Gates, I'm probably trying to try to get a plea bargain too, and not do the not guilty thing, because clearly somebody feels that Mueller got a lot of stuff, because you got the Trump campaign coming back, doing their usual thing, but a little up the ante. They're sitting here screaming, well, what about the Dems? What about the Dems? Hillary colluded, which, by the way, I went off, and you were a part of that rant that I went off on earlier this week, where him saying that Hillary colluded is kind of dumb, because if you didn't hear, they found some news that the DMC may have paid for an investigation firm to investigate. We talked about it last week too, but to investigate the Trump campaign and see if they were up to anything, and and they were trying to give him some information on Trump's personal relationship with Russia that they didn't necessarily use against Trump. I don't think they actually used any of it, to be quite honest. Which, had they paid this company to sabotage the Trump campaign, that would be collusion, but they didn't. They were actually really investigating whether or not the Russians were getting involved in this, and if they were working with Trump campaign, which I don't know about you, but while I think it's sleazy, at least a bit sleazy, because of course we know the motivation is let's get Trump derailed. But at the same time, if you have any idea that there's something illegal going on, you probably want to go ahead and have that investigated, because that's a federal fucking offense. And I don't know about you, but I would want to know whether or not we're having a clean election or not, because this is horrible.
Probably not the best motivation, but it is important, like you said. What the fuck? Sorry. I didn't even know where to start with that. So I was, driving back home to have this podcast with you, and I was thinking about this issue. I remember early on, I was, really willing to give the benefit of the doubt with this whole Trump campaign's ties to Russia and the collusion thing. I mean, it was bad enough that Russia tried to, and I guess in some way succeeded, manipulate our election and whatnot. But I was at least willing to put aside the likelihood of Trump campaign officials having colluded directly with them. This shit looks not great. First of all, bravo to Mueller, because this motherfucker's on a roll. He's coming out guns a-blazing.
Real quick, just to be fair too to both sides, he's doing so much damage that he scared a key DNC supporter, Podesta, who ran a firm that has donated to the DNC heavily. He stepped down of his own firm because Mueller apparently has information that shows that he may have done some messed up things. Although it's kind of interesting because the things that he's done kind of tie into what Trump is doing, which is he may have worked with the Russians to find out some stuff, not necessarily just against Trump, but also possibly that could have hurt the DNC. It's a weird thing. All I know is this guy has pretty much been called out for maybe playing both sides. It's so fucking weird, but he stepped down. He was like, I'm done. I'm quitting my own company. He quit his own company. The man removed himself from his own company. That's how scared Mueller has people. How many people?
How
many people do you know own a business and say, you know what? I fire myself because I ain't shit and I'm running from myself. And it's so weird. But go ahead with what you were saying.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how that rolls out. So like I said, I was going to give the benefit of the doubt, but this looks fucking bad. But I was thinking, somebody had mentioned the possibility of this going all the way up to Trump and the possibility of his impeachment and whatnot. And I realized we are in a no-win situation with this motherfucker. So let's say he gets impeached. That will do incredible damage to our country's unity, or I'm not sure how you want to describe it, but this division between the left and the right will only get that much worse if you have their president, if you want to say it that way, impeached. That's not going to look fucking great, and it's going to become even harder. It'll be pouring gas on the fire that's already burning all around us, essentially. So even impeachment, as good as it would be because it would get this motherfucker out of there, is not great culturally speaking. It's a real shot to the balls for the country to have their president impeached. That's not something one should look forward to, and not just because you don't want wow, I just forgot the vice president's name all of a sudden.
Pence.
Yes, like Sessions' face got stuck in my mind, and then I started thinking about how he looks like the elf, the cookies and shit.
Keebler.
Yeah, Keebler. And I was like, this motherfucker's cute, so I got too distracted to remember Pence's name. But yes, my mind goes too fast in stupid directions. But yeah, just the fact that he would take over is bad enough. But a lot of people are like, yeah, we need to get this Trump guy impeached and whatever. And it's looking increasingly possible that he did have some ties. And I'm not saying impeachment is a strong possibility at this point, but I don't know that I'm necessarily looking forward to that if it happens. I mean, it is. You will be telling your kids about the time Trump got impeached if that happens. It will not do anything positive for unity. You'll have all these crazy Trump fans out there, who think that the liberal media is against them and all these people are against them and Trump. They will feel even further vindicated if something bad happens to them. On the flip side, nothing happens to Trump, and then he's still going to be here being a fucking moron, fucking up the country. As a third thing, we get out of his presidency relatively unscathed, right? What will that tell you? That will tell you that a guy can act like a complete fucking idiot. A despicable human, his entire presidency and campaign. That will tell you he can do whatever the fuck he wants. And if we don't, if after his presidency, the country isn't on fire, we're all still alive somehow, all the Trump supporters would be like, see, wasn't that bad? We survived. It will show people that you can have a president like Trump and survive, which is good, I guess, but it's not the kind of precedent you want to start.
That's not good.
So, win, lose, or draw with this motherfucker, I don't see any good resolution to this.
Okay, so it's Halloween, right? We're talking about scary stories and stuff like that. I'm about to scare the fuck out of everybody because you have given, in my mind, a very light, positive scenario of what can happen with all of this. I'm going to go, you may call it extreme, but what I think may be the scary, horrible reality that we're heading towards. Because it's going to be worse than just impeaching a president or a horrible president getting away with it and teaching people that you could be a fucked up person and do whatever you want and not have any repercussions. One, I don't think he's going to escape any repercussions. I don't think anybody high up in this administration is going to necessarily escape. Even if they don't get fired or they don't get impeached and convicted, this is going to turn into a flaming fucking nightmare. And the reason I say this is because look at all the names that they've brought up over time in this indictment, this whole investigation. And now you have 3 of the major players already indicted. You have 3 people who know a significant amount of information who can cause problems for a shit ton of people, not just the president, not just the vice president, not just the president's son or the president's daughter or the president's son-in-law. I'm talking, you have your Secretary of State, possibly your Secretary of Justice, possibly your Secretary of Energy. That's 3 key cabinet parts right there. Congress is, kind of being dodgy about this because they don't want to talk about it. Could part of their not wanting to talk about it is that there's a bunch of people within Congress who may have known about some stuff and may have obstructed justice? You may be kicking out some Congress members too if the rabbit hole keeps going deeper and deeper. You could literally see the deconstruction of the United States government in front of your eyes momentarily. Because it will be a very chaotic situation if the president, the vice president, Secretary of State, head of energy, head of justice, if all of those people, especially if the head of justice goes, god damn. You mean to tell me the highest legal authority of the land is a fucking crook too? You're going to break his whole administration, which means you're cleaning house and you got to reset. What do we do in that situation? Is it going to go to to Paul Ryan? And how is Paul Ryan going to be able to do anything effectively? Like him or not, if it ends up to where they just do this whole big wipeout of the Trump administration and someone in Congress has to take over, and he's Republican, he's now president. My ass is on fire because somebody threw a gallon of gasoline in the fucking Oval Office and I got to sit in it. That's who you are. If all of this breaks down to like these indictments turning into being convictions, because it's not just about impeachment anymore for Trump. He could go to jail. He can, and then you have to worry about, is he going to tempt law and try to pardon himself and everybody and walk away? It's going to be a fucking, it's not just going to be you telling your kids, remember the time when the president got impeached for fucking colluding with Russia? No, it's going to be like, remember when there was no government? That's what it's going to feel like, because it's already kind of like that. And again, this is stuff that we don't pay attention to, but think about all the major appointments. Think about the cabinet. Half of his cabinet, like, well, I won't say half, but there's a good significant portion of his cabinet that have temporary people in his position, either at the top of it or somewhere in a high level. You know, remember, we don't have an FBI a director, I don't think, after Comey. Who's the FBI director? I don't know. I believe we have a temporary FBI director.
Temporary? Oh, shit.
Yeah.
You're right.
You know, Kelly, his replacement hasn't been made yet. He stepped up to chief of staff. I forgot what department he was running, but his replacement hasn't been set. There's tons of judges out there that haven't been approved yet. This whole government has already been bogged down in the bullshit of this investigation, the drama over healthcare. Now we're going to have the drama over tax reform. And it's like nothing else in the goddamn government seems to. We don't have circuit judges. Why don't we have judges in courts? Think about the number of trials that are probably stacked up and sitting back, federal trials and, you know, different other civil trials that have been brought to the circuit level that are just sitting there because we don't have fucking judges. Our law is not effectively working anymore because of this, like, presidency. It's already a fucking, like, shit show. And if all these indictments come through the way that they are, it's going to be fucking ridiculous. There's not going to be enough alcohol in the world to calm me down. I'm telling you now, it's going to be really, really crazy. And people just don't realize, like, the storm that could possibly come. I hope that if things happen and all these people get indicted, that all the impeachments and stuff go quickly. But reality is, this isn't going to be a quick thing. We're going to be suffering. Whether he's president or not, I do believe we're going to be suffering with Trump in our eye line for 4 years. Well, even if he's, you know, not as sitting, even if it's not as sitting president, he's going to be the sitting possible convict that we're going to have to deal with for 4 fucking years, because it's going to be a lot of unraveling. And if Mueller is on his boss shit like he is now, he's going to dig into everybody. He's not just going to sit still with Trump, you know.
I guess that's the positive. That motherfucker might go down in history for, like, the biggest fucking, pretty much just going in and, like, punching the government in the face.
Yeah, he's like, oh, jeez.
But I will give to you. You certainly painted a much darker picture than I was going to. I probably could have. I hadn't thought about it quite in that way. But, and no, when I brought up the impeachment scenario, which you have added way more dark layers on, but when I brought up that scenario, that is one of the scenarios a lot of people are wishing for. And there's a reason you know, if they're criminals, they need to fucking go, obviously, because they're going to keep being criminals. But it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows if anything like that happens.
Yeah, no, you want to do justice, but in this case, the justice may have harder repercussions than letting it go. And it's like we're in this, like, weird political, moral just like dilemma because, yeah, he's not fit to be president. He's exhibit that fact time and time again with his tweets, with his interviews, with his behavior during speeches. This guy doesn't get it. It doesn't seem like anybody in his administration is willing. In fact, I just read an article today before I left work where they were saying like we all fooled ourselves into thinking that Kelly was going to be that ear in that like whisper in Trump's ear that was going to like calm him down and try to right the ship and fix the organization, the whole organization of the White House administration. And in reality, we didn't pay attention to the subtle signs in the past and now leading up to this moment that this guy thinks and talks like Trump more than we realize, because he did an interview where he talked about the Civil War thing, and he made mention that the Civil War wouldn't have happened if people could have compromised with each other. And he gave huge props to General Robert E. Lee about how this man fought for states, and that was okay back then, because back then they were more, you loved your state more than your country, so that's okay. And that's why it's okay that he fought for the South and did what he should be admired for that and all that. And it was just a weird fucking interview, and it was like he was all over the place like Trump. He was defending that, and he doubled down on the whole Frederica Wilson thing, where he was like, they asked him, does he owe her apology? He was like, if I felt like I owed her an apology, I would, but I don't owe her an apology because I didn't say anything wrong. And the guy was like, even after the video showed that, and he was like, no, I didn't say anything wrong. So it's like, man, you want them to go, but like I was saying, everything gets pushed to the wayside, and like the governing of the country is just going to be thrown into a mess because of this. Because
I'm not arguing they should stay by any means. If they're criminals, they have to go. I'm just saying, these people out here looking to that possible future as like this amazing event or utopian solution are fooling themselves. It is not what you want, it's what you need. I guess if this happens, you will not be happy about it, and we shouldn't be. That will be an example of our democracy getting fucked in the ass.
Because it's going to roll into this is going to roll into next year's elections. And we were talking about how people pick sides. This is going to become like one of those pick a side wars. If somebody doesn't come out and demonstrably denounce the administration, they're in jeopardy of losing their job. At the same time, you probably don't want to come out and demonstrably denounce, because what if they get through all this in the whole shit show? How is this going to affect you and your relationship? It's going to be fucking ridiculous, And if you're in a state that's for Trump and he gets through this cleanly, and you ran anti-Trump, how are you going to fare yourself? His whole presidency is sending like shockwaves through the entirety of the federal government and even the local government too. Because I sit here and I watch these goddamn commercials for the Virginia government and state's attorney election, where they're talking pretty much the same talking point. Like, if I hear another commercial talk about how the MS-13 is taking over the state of Virginia, which isn't true, but that's what they keep talking. Like, you got to keep the Mexicans out of Virginia and all that. I swear, it's just like, oh my God, this man is just, he's rotting the core of this goddamn country.
We talked about the impeachment case. Let's talk about him staying. His presence is you talked about somebody being Kelly being a whisper in his ear. I never understood why so many people thought that about so many people, from him to his daughter to his wife to several other officials. He's a fucking crazy person. Nobody whispering in his ear.
He's whispering in his own ear.
And this isn't like a revelation. He was showing us this type of behavior throughout his entire campaign. The fact that he was constantly acting the way he was and nobody seemed to be able to stop him. Should have been a strong indication that when he became the president, nobody was going to be able to stop him then either. I'm not sure why anybody keeps looking for that magical person to come and whisper in his ear. It doesn't fucking work.
No.
Nobody could calm him down during his own campaign. Why do you think anybody's going to stop him now?
No, it's like I remember a couple of weeks ago, the music artist Pink talking about we need to try to like not be so against this and try to give him a chance, and if people can change and all that. But it's like his guys indicated at no time that he's willing or able to change. People say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's relatively true. It's hard to get somebody who's settled in their habits to want to change. And this guy's 70 years old. He's been acting a fool since he was since forever. I mean, he talked about the story he told where he punched the teacher in the face in the second grade or something like that in elementary school because he didn't like what the teacher was saying to him, or he didn't want to listen to the teacher.
Music teacher or whatever.
Yeah, it's like he's punching. This guy is so fucking self-indulged and spoiled that he punched a teacher and got away. He's been taught for all his life that his position financially and that his position as far as fame and all that, celebrity and whatnot, affords him a level of protection beyond like that of anybody else. He really has in his mind that he's untouchable, and he's gotten to the position where now he's the top person, the head of considerably the most powerful country in the world. And you think that this guy wasn't going to like get charged up and think that he's uber invincible now and act the fool, even more of a fool? Come on.
You touched on that, idea of giving him a chance. When he first got elected, I heard many people, many of which were on the right, but some on the left too, saying, all right, he's president, let's give him a chance. That's a very stupid fucking thing to say. And I'm not normally that blunt about it, but he's been in the public eye for decades. And even if he hadn't been, you saw him during his campaign. He's shown you who he is, point blank, very plainly. It's not like this is a stranger that walked in and you're like, hey, I don't know you. Let's give him a chance. There is plenty on record of him showing how inept he is, showing how bad he is at business, showing what a shit person he is over decades. Why do you want to give him a chance? You've pretty much given him a chance throughout his entire life. We have plenty of evidence that he was not fit for this job. Again, he's not some stranger you've never heard about before. And even if he had been, you could easily look him up, look up his history. And even if he didn't have a history, you had months of watching him be a complete fucking disaster. What chance did you need to give this guy? And I'm always as fair as can be, but I just don't understand that. Well, he's the president. We have to give him a shot. I gave him a shot when he was fucking campaigning. He proved what a moron he was that entire time. What shot do you need now?
Yeah. But people still continue to maintain that. And again, you have people in his administration that are fostering his behavior, that are reinforcing it, that are backing it by acting just as bad as he is. Like Sarah Huckabee Sanders. God bless you.
Yeah.
Like, you have seriously given yourself over to the dark side. Your soul has been excavated from your body, because you just I just don't get it. Like, you need to get out, girl. Sean Spicer showed you guys the way. Just leave.
So I'm not aware of what those individuals were like before. So I'm not sure how much they've changed, but I will say, people talking about, these magical whispers again. You keep assuming that somebody can change his mind. It's the other way around. He's like this ideological poison that spreads to everybody else. You have people who you should assume were at least relatively sane beforehand, saying patently false, easily disproven, incredibly stupid, illogical things because they're around him. He he just spreads this thought process like some kind of disease to everybody around him. Everybody's like, oh, they're gonna get this person in. They'll lean on his shoulder. They'll whisper in his ear. They'll turn him around. Other way. You should be running from this guy because he's gonna turn you crazy just like him. Yeah, I don't know how he does it, but
I think another thing that we need to realize is that most people, no matter where they are, whatever position they have, when you are like in that position, you're gonna try to get like-minded people. Not necessarily to the victor goes the spoils type mentality, where it's like I'm just gonna bring all my boys along and we're gonna do what we want. But you kind of want people who kind of, fit within your philosophy. Like Obama did it, Clinton did it, Bush did it. You get people who you have an agenda, you have like a thing. Even if you, like Obama, pick people who will give opposing opinions, you want to get people who are willing to listen to both sides. That was Obama's kind of thing. He wanted to try to get people who were open, who like you may have a certain opinion, but you're open to being convinced of something else, or at least listening to what the other side is, so we can try to figure out the middle ground. Bush, he got his father's people in there, people who shared the philosophies that he campaigned on, who wanted to push those agendas that they wanted to effectively run. Same thing with Clinton. It's, you do that. You don't just surround yourself with people who you don't willingly and openly come in and say, I need this person to make sure I don't, I listen to them. They can influence me to be a better person. You kind of want that, but at the same time, you still want somebody who's going to be easy to work with for you. And when you're a person like Donald Trump, who's not necessarily looking to change and looking for another opinion beyond yourself, you're going to go with people who are willing to foster those things, that you feel make you great. You know what I mean?
That was really one of my fears when he first got elected, because I remember people saying, other people in government will rein him in. And I remember thinking, like, who the fuck are you talking about? He's bringing in his motherfuckers. Like,
yeah.
Who is this? Who are these group of people that you think are going to stop him? He's surrounded. At that time, it was like guys like Carson and whatever, but like, he's surrounded with like-minded motherfuckers. I never understood why people were so calm. Like, yeah, it's a whole government thing. Other people will stop him. Who are you referring to? I don't see them.
Yeah, you got Ben Carson. He don't even know what the fuck he's doing. He can't even answer questions directly. You got his daughter, who I have no idea what the hell she does to this day in that office.
She's blonde and attractive. I don't know.
Yeah, his son, his daughter's husband, who
he does everything.
What the hell are you really doing other than backdoor deals?
Doing all the work. Man.
He had Steve Bannon, who was just this quiet, like, yeah, he was whispering in his ear, but he was like the devil on his shoulder, telling him, to like kill them all and all of that. You got Kelly now, who again everybody thought was going to be this like great positive influence. He's losing his goddamn mind in the press, saying all types of dumb shit.
I didn't think he was going to do shit. I'm so sick of people thinking like, yeah, this is going to be the next guy. No, I
didn't think he was going to make a difference. The thing that surprised me the most about him is I wasn't expecting for him to publicly come out and make an ass of himself and start to do it at a more consistent basis like he's doing now. It's like, yo, dude, at first you were pretty quiet. You were just a guy in the background that everybody was saying, yeah, he's the like calming figure and all that. It's like, yeah, I don't think you were going to change his mind, but you were chilling for a while. And then all of a sudden after that whole Charlottesville thing, and it was like that Charlottesville thing just made you just like snap. It's like, you know what? I'm losing my goddamn mind. I'm going to go with it and have fun with it.
Yeah, fair enough. Like, I didn't think he was going to do anything, but I just assumed it. I figured everybody else was projecting this whole he's going to temper Trump onto him, and he was just like, fuck that. I'm just going to sit here quietly. Don't fuck with me. I'm trying to stay safe, but he put himself out there.
Yeah, he certainly did. It's a mess. Happy Halloween, by the way, everybody. I hope you have a holiday.
I'm really I'm looking forward ahead like 10 years or so. Like, I should pick an even number, like 12 or whatever, to like the next few elections, because I do have a fear that Trump has introduced, or if not introduced, at least kind of increased some very bad tendencies that are becoming very popular. You know, we talked about it last week, I think. The way we have to talk about the president like he's a fucking 5-year-old. I'm wondering if we still respect the idea of the presidency anymore after Trump leaves, because we've been used to having a child in the office, right? So,
yeah, it's sad. And it's funny because I thought about this before. Damn fucking Sarah Palin and the Tea Party, because they kind of helped introduce that like weird, just crazy, off the cuff, nonsensical element. That, I mean, politics has always been crazy and weird and frustrating and, you know, head scratching, because there's certain things that the traditional parties did, even things that independents did. You know, all of it has been crazy. You know, it's never been necessarily the most calmest and serene platform to pay attention to, but I feel like when McCain, and, you know, for all the respect I've had for him for certain things that he's done, that was the moment where McCain kind of, probably, if you were to ask him before he died, like, what was his biggest disappointing moment, it probably would be agreeing to Sarah Palin, because that introduced a level of nonsense into politics where you had these like really like extreme view people who helped foster people like Steve Bannon and the alt-right and their ilk, to where now you have like people really running campaigns, not necessarily to win, to do stuff that's better for the people, but now you have this siege on the Republican Party. The Republican Party has this infight where you have this crazy group that wants to destroy the Republican Party as we know it and rebirth it into their vision that leans towards the alt-right stuff, and that are willing to fight social and racial battles, you know, do dirty tactics and draw the line in the sand between certain things and eliminate certain, you know, pretty much roll the clock back to a time where freedom of speech and, you know, the ability to get along with each other and all that, it's just abolished. They want like the fucking early 1800s back. You know, they want to go back before the Civil War in most cases. And it's crazy. Like Sarah Palin, like, to use a football analogy, Sarah Palin kicked it, but Trump is now running with the ball, and he's running like really, really hard down the like field with the ball, and he has a team. He has a team around him and a bunch of people coming, you know, behind him that are willing to take that ball and run all of us over with it. And it's just so fucking, and it's here, and it's going to be, you know, him winning kind of proof that you can be. I mean, we saw it after he got elected with stuff like imagery of the KKK in North Carolina hanging out celebrating in public on bridges, and people going to schools and harassing minorities and things like that. He's opened the idea that it's okay to be the way it used to be, that is coming back, that is making a return, and it's just.
I think that's a, you know, earlier you made a very interesting point that I hadn't thought much about, like with I was looking at somebody else, but Palin, like the idea that the Republican Party has been over the last number of years increasingly primed and ready to be taken over by a guy like Trump. I hadn't much thought about it, but I've always found the Republican Party to be somewhat distasteful. That's partially because I'm an atheist, and I noticed the Republican Party to be, you know, captured heavily by religious zealotry. specifically Christian religious zealotry, but even beyond that, they just seem to get taken over by all these cartoon characters. You had, Palin there. You had Romney's with this weird Mormonism. No offense to Mormons, but again, I'm an atheist, so I don't think it's that much stupider than Christianity is. Bachman, Carson, I remember looking at the stage of possible Republicans. I think it might have been leading into this last election. There was a lot of them, and none of them seemed truly serious. They all seemed like cartoon characters in my mind. That made it really hard to look at the Republican Party with any real respect, especially then, aside from the craziness and the religious zealotry, when you jump on with their fiscal ideas, essentially their ideas about how the country should spend money and whatnot. I hadn't thought much about the way you put it, but yeah, I guess with the increasing number of cartoon characters running around in their party, they were somewhat primed and ready for this to happen to them. This Trumpism to come in and just take over, especially because they had so many of these figures. They were somewhat divided already.
Their obsession with beating liberalism at all costs kind of, in my opinion, made them take their eye off of what's going on in the world and realize that part of the problem was when they introduced Sarah Palin, it was a collective agreement between the Republican Party to say, you know what, she's getting, her views seem kind of popular. Maybe it's popular enough to beat Obama. So let's go with it because we need to do whatever we can to beat this guy and to beat liberals. You know what I mean? And if you look at the last few elections, this is what it's been. Flash to this Obama's second run. Mitt Romney was almost, in ways he had similarities to Obama, but the way he carried himself and the way he spoke his message was such a 180 from what Obama did. That's what they wanted. They wanted the anti-Obama. They needed that force to bounce off of him and hopefully push him out the way, because this is what people want. This is what we're looking for. That didn't work. Now you flash forward to Trump. Trump was an extreme, off the cuff, say whatever he wants. People started to eat it up. You had these other candidates who, like you said, they're all cartoon characters, but they still had enough traditional Republic, ways in them to where they had some type of grounding. Trump had no grounding. He openly admitted he didn't know what he was talking about as a politician. He openly said he doesn't know politics, but he's not going to be a politician. He's going to do things unlike any politician. And he's going to say what he wants, and he's going to make all these big, sweeping, grand gestures. He talked big, he talked crazy, he said whatever he wanted. And in the era now where the internet age has made people a lot more free with what they say, thinking that there's no repercussions, he was the symbol of, look at this guy. He's saying and doing whatever the fuck he wants, and he's popular because it. I want to be like this guy. I want to be able to do whatever the fuck I want and be cool like him. To
your point, he's not suffering any repercussions, which is making it that much worse because he's proving that point right. He's still president. Nothing's happening to him.
Yeah, and it's he built this aura of just no matter what, you're gonna love me, and people ran with that. And then you have Hillary, the establishment, and all of that, and yeah, people are tired of a lot of establishment politics, but also, in the background was we need to get rid of these liberals too, and that was part of why the Republican Party were willing to endorse, not vehemently, but they endorsed this guy and they stood aside and they were quiet and they, let what happened with him happen because they were like, well, he's running as a Republican, which means if he gets in, we have a Republican Congress. That means we get to do what we want. So let's just sit here and let this shit happen. And hopefully, like you said, hopefully we can control him enough to get our agenda pushed through. They allowed it to happen. And now that they've allowed him into the door, people are looking at them like, yeah, well, your establishment, McConnell, your establishment, Ryan, all of you guys are what he isn't. And anytime something messes up, it's your fault. It's not his fault because he's trying to do things different than you are. You know what? We don't need you guys anymore. We want more like him. And now you have this big set of people that are running, that he's campaigning for, that Bannon's campaigning for, that are bringing these really bad ideas to the table, but that are getting momentum because they act like in support Donald Trump and his agenda, while the Republicans have never really committed to Trump's agenda. McConnell says, "Oh, we're working together," but everybody knows McConnell's not 100% on board. Everybody knows Ryan's not 100% on board. Everybody knows most of the Congress isn't. Congress Republicans aren't on board, and so that's going to dog them all through next year's election because there may be changes in a shift in the in the Democrats' favor, not because people don't like Republicans, but because the Republicans might cannibalize themselves in this infighting to where you're going to have a lot of long-standing people not be able to get elected. You're going to have people in fear of the Trump people who might get nominated as a candidate. You're going to have splits where some of these Trump people probably run independent or separate campaigns and split votes. It's going to be a mess. 2018 is going to be a political mess because of the Republicans not paying attention to what's going on and the direction that they were leading their party in.
At this point, we'll be used to political messes by then, but their bad instincts have been fucking them for a long time. So you talk about them wanting to, beat Obama or beat out the liberals. They're their own worst fucking nightmare then, because I remember thinking, I want to be fair and even-minded, despite the religious zealotry, maybe I can find myself voting for a Republican. But I never could because they put up the most ridiculous fucking people their party has to offer. Their party's main voices were always the craziest people you would find. They themselves made it impossible to vote for the Republican Party if you had a right mind because they didn't put anybody reasonable to oppose Obama in that case. Like, I could have maybe seen myself voting for a Republican if they had put somebody reasonable there. You could argue that maybe McCain was, but
no, wholeheartedly before that whole campaign, McCain was a really widely respected, person. He's treated with Democrats and a lot of different things. I mean, a lot of people like to call him a maverick. I wouldn't call him a maverick. He believes in his party's philosophy, but he also has always had the wherewithal to know that if there was something that seemed like it was the right thing to do, that he's going to go with it. He wasn't just going to always, and that's why I guess people called him a maverick, because he wouldn't always go in lockstep with Republicans simply because he just would use his own judgment in some cases and be like, you know what? Yeah, this ain't cool, or this seems much better, so I'm going to vote in that way, type of thing. He came off before the whole campaign against Obama as one of the more sensible politicians, not Republicans, one of the more sensible politicians in Washington, D.C. And it's like that whole campaign just fucking destroyed him.
And now them throwing their lot in with Trump, you're making some very serious tactical mistakes. That, throwing up the crazy people is one thing. Now, Trump, somebody mentioned the possibility of Trump being able to have done the same thing with the Democratic Party. I don't think he could. There's several reasons for that. One is because the Republican Party is particularly tribal. They're very loyal. They, like you said, they kind of walk in lockstep, whether they like it or not. They kind of agree to cooperate a lot better than probably the Democratic Party does. So once he got in and took control, he had full control because everybody kind of had to fall in line with him because they have that insane level of loyalty to the point where they couldn't really do anything. So once he was there, that's it. He's there. And what you've been saying is only increasing my fears that, our social idea of politics is going to be continuously fucked after this guy because he's made certain things that should not be normal feel normal. I remember after his election, what's his name? John Oliver said, you know, remember, this is not normal. Remember. I'm sorry, it feels fucking normal. And I hate saying that, but
it's becoming normal because it's becoming every day you're starting to see this stuff. And
any one of these things could have been like major news for weeks prior to this. But it just feels like it feels like a fucking Tuesday now. Like,
if this was any other administration, the level of shock, scandal, controversy that we've had since remember, it's only been since January 21st of this year. You don't see that much scandal happen in a 2-term presidency. This man has yet to reach a year. And look at the messes that he's started. It's incredible. It is really incredible. It's disheartening as hell, but part of me, I should say, has this weird fascination too, because I have never seen anything like this in my life.
I'm younger, but no, I haven't either.
Yeah, and you got to think I've been at least. While not involved, I've been kind of cognizant of presidency since probably the age of 6 or 7. Like my first biggest political memory is probably knowing that Jimmy Carter was from Georgia, because that's all they used to tell us at the age of 6, and him losing to Reagan, and then Reagan gets shot. Like I could remember that stuff at the, between the ages of 6 and 8, and I remember Reaganomics and all of the different things like the Star Wars program and the war on drugs and the different political escapes, the Iron Contra controversy and stuff like I've seen some crazy shit go on. Wars, policies that are like really, really bad. The 3 strikes you're out program coming to the whole. Like a gram of crack will get you more jail time than a fucking ounce of coke, because crack is more heavily in urban communities, so it's easier to do that. It's all types of stuff I've seen go on with this political structure that we have in this country, and all of that can't even begin to. They haven't even lit the wick to the candle in comparison to what this whereas they're still trying to get the lighter to catch flame to the candle with all the stuff that happened in the past. This guy has taken the candle, set the drapes on fire, set the furniture on fire, fucking threw it into a fucking pit of gasoline, and made sure that shit spreaded all throughout the goddamn neighborhood, which is the United States.
So I'm sad that you just reminded me that it hasn't been a year yet. You didn't have to do that shit. I'm just saying, that was unnecessary to me. I got feelings and shit, but
we haven't even gotten to the anniversary of the fucking election. We haven't even gotten to a year since he was elected into office.
Oh my god.
It's fucking crazy. It's just mind-boggling.
3+ more years. What the fuck? And I realize, first of all, this guy is a very strong challenge to our democracy or republic, because some people get pissed off and say we're not a democracy or republic. What the fuck ever. But I think that we've gotten too used to having normal people, I guess, because you see, those people who say, you got to give him a chance. You see people saying he's the president, work across the aisle with him. A lot of people are making the mistake of treating him like a regular motherfucker. And that's part of the reason he's able to do so much, is because, you have certain standard things that you do with a president. And everybody's like, well, he's the president, do this, blah, blah, blah. He's not fucking normal on any like I said, I always prided myself on being very fair. Objectively, as I can judge this motherfucker, he's a dumpster fire. I mean, everything about him is incredibly alarming, from his psychological nature to his everything. Everything. I don't want to start that list off because it's going to be long, but there's nothing particularly redeeming about this guy. And we need to stop making the mistake of treating him like he's any other president throughout history. He's just not. This administration is not like any other well, some people want to talk about McCarthyism and shit, but no, I feel 10 years from now we're going to be using the term Trumpism instead.
No, because even McCarthyism had normalcy, because it goes back to, hey, this was an era where people were really strong against communism, and it was the red versus the USA type of thing. That was what McCarthy did, was just standard sad human nature type stuff of people having viewpoints that are really messed up and being in fear of things that they don't understand, you know, and reacting to it. This guy, it's not just him. It's not like he's just focused on, I need to build the wall because Mexicans are going to get us type of thing. You know, it was like, okay, you had McCarthyism, but you also had other stuff that happened. Like during the age of McCarthyism, we also created the highways and the roadways and built up our infrastructure so that our industrial network could be more connected, and that we built power grids and stuff like that. It was like in the midst of that chaos of McCarthyism, there were more productive things going on in the world, and like the government still functioned. It's just that, you know, that was just a bad part of that administration and what was going on at that time. But they still did the job. It's kind of like, you know, a lot of people think the Bush administration was horrible for some of the policies and stuff like that, but the government functioned. Things happened that would benefit people and that help people, you know, say what you will about them, but they didn't derail the country, you know.
So that's a further point I want to get to on this, but now I have a question. Do you feel that there's been anything particularly good so far? We're only less than a year in, but can you point to something particularly positive about Trumpism, as we will be calling it?
I can't, because it's like he always touts the Dow Jones and how like it's doing okay and things like that. That was already making an upturn before Obama left office, and most people don't realize this, but generally speaking, the ills or the positives of a previous administration, when it comes to certain things, and particularly financially, tend to linger for about 1.5 to 2 years. It's like when Obama first came into office, remember, the unemployment rate was still abysmal and it was struggling, and we had like different financial issues with banks and things like that for his first like 2, maybe even you could say 3 years. It also depends on the severity of the damage that was done previously before the next president comes in. So it takes time, because all these things that presidents put into play, sign into law and stuff like that, they don't necessarily just like day one, boom, everything does like quick turnaround to reflect that. It takes a while to like for us to really see what the repercussions or, you know, the positives or negatives are of these things. So I can't even attribute that to him. Of course, he's going to take credit because, hey, it's a positive number, and he's happened to be the one who's sitting there, and that's what we normally do. Is
he
that
when take credit, you know?
It's like when you're there, you get the it's just you being there, getting the credit or the blame for being there, not necessarily for anything that you did.
No, but what I was going to point to is I remember it was early in his presidency. I remember him tweeting out this. I'm pretty sure it was in reference to the Dow. He tweeted something like complaining that the media didn't praise him for the good nature of the Dow at the time, which shows that he didn't fucking understand it. But I remember him specifically complaining that he was not getting praise about how well the Dow was doing. So it's not just that he's taking credit; he's mad at people for not giving him credit.
Well, no, that even goes to the day, because I just remembered one of his tweets of the day was, he like something about stocks or something is up 3%, and you've never seen that type of increase over like in a presidency of 3%. And this guy, this financial expert, tweeted back, 2014, 5.2% under the Obama administration. Yeah, we have seen this before. like he just tries to latch on to whatever number that's like an uptick, anything that looks like it's an uptick. He just jumps on it and says, "Yeah, I did this. I'm proud of this. Nobody's done this better than me." And it's just like, without thinking, you've just put yourself in a situation to be pretty much proven wrong, because as with that number, it's been done before, you know? So
nothing good out of the presidency?
No, well, I guess the thing that I would say is good, it is the thing that I said that's going to be the positive when he got elected, is that now people are all of a sudden perking up to the idea of, yo, what just happened? I need to figure this out and pay attention more. And that would be my positive, is that even though you still get a lot of people who are just caught up in the noise of yelling about, you know, I'm this side, I'm that side, fuck Trump, hail Trump, all that, you are getting more people who are willing to open themselves up and be more involved and try to understand the political, landscape more, which is a good thing, because more people need to be more knowledgeable about this stuff and pay more attention and get more involved in what's going on. Because as me and Katina said, like plenty of times back and forth to people we know, these people are doing things that have impact on your lives and your children's lives and your children's lives, things that affect your community. You may think it's not worth taking your time out to go and vote for a sheriff of your municipality or your county or whatever. But remember, this is the guy who is running law enforcement in your county. The way that he allows his officers to act can impact you, especially minorities, because we know in certain areas they treat us much differently, much more negatively. And you want to make sure that you have somebody who's going to be fair, who's going to do his job the right way and things like that. Here where I live in the state of Maryland, PG County, a few years ago, we had this big controversy where this guy, he had been in office for so long as a councilman, he got arrested because they found out that him and his wife were cutting deals left and right with different businesses and stuff like that, laundering money and taking payoffs for different things, giving out licenses that shouldn't have been given out for businesses and allowing certain things to go on. He had this huge thing where he was getting tons of money from strip clubs that were doing illegal things and all that. It was like he was just, the money was pouring into him, and he was just like cutting all these crazy deals and giving all these rules, setting these rules and lobbying for things that shouldn't have been. And he finally got caught. And it was like everybody's not paying attention, because it's like, okay, Jack Johnson is the councilman, sure, whatever. I don't care. But he just kept getting reelected. While, unbeknownst to people not paying attention, this guy was fucking robbing the state and the county blind and causing a lot of chaos and helping to foster some of the worst parts of the county. So you got to pay attention. It makes a difference. It makes a big difference, people. So that's the positive.
Yeah, I will acknowledge that somewhat of a positive, and I can agree. It has motivated me to become a little bit more politically aware. Some of it is just I hadn't always been, somewhat because I was just younger at the time, somewhat because I moved around so much that I didn't have much motivation to become as interested in the local politics, because I just wasn't there very long. So I will say that it is a decent motivator. I tend to look at it as a negative note, because it makes me feel like, when you feel so motivated to look into politics, it probably means that something is going incredibly wrong. Like, I'm an engineer, right? Like when I feel motivated to look at a piece of code that I don't normally look at, it's because there's a bug. Like, yeah. So I would call that a double-edged sword. And I guess one other argument that I've heard, and I'm not taking away from your point that it is good that people are more interested,
No, you make a very excellent point. We do tend to react when something happens instead of paying attention before it actually happens. Yeah.
Right, which is part of my fear is that, well, I'll touch on this point in a little bit, but one other somewhat decent point I've heard people say is that, I think these are like relatively anti-establishment people who are like, well, it's shaking shit up. And it's just like, we needed to be shown that the government's this and that. And they're just like really anti-establishment and they just love the idea that shit is getting shaken up. I think they really underestimate the damage this motherfucker can do because you could argue has done and will continue to do, but you have these people who are just okay with something different happening, some change, and it's, to me, there is a little bit of merit to that, I guess, but some people are way too excited about that. Like, it is not worth the damage we are receiving. But on that other point I wanted to touch, we talked about what could happen if a large portion of his administration got, butt fucked in prison. Talked a little bit about what would happen if he was staying. We focus mostly on what would happen in government and politics and whatnot, but I argue that this guy has a major social impact too, because like I've said before, we were already in the state where we didn't trust, the mainstream media enough, where people are doing their own research online with these random bullshit sources pretty much. He is constantly pouring gas on that fucking fire. Like I was just looking at his Twitter and he was like the fake news media. I don't remember what it was, probably earlier today, referring to that. It was that the fake news is working overtime, shit like that. And I'm looking at some of his replies and he still has pretty, strong followers who agree with him for no apparent reason. Like in America, we have this strong sense of anti-intellectualism. I think people don't really want to think the way they should. And when you have a moron for a president, it proves that I guess anti-intellectualism is all right. Like he's clearly anti-fucking science, because the fact that we have a president who could say global climate change is a Chinese hoax and then become fucking president proves the point. People are not thinking very much. I don't know what to do with that, but this is a cultural problem that he's making worse, and it's going to linger when he's gone. Again, we were already bad with this sort of thing, but when you have a president who doesn't believe in global climate change or really fucking anything, like it can only get that much worse. I think I mentioned, it was probably that last podcast we talked about people being more accountable, and I mentioned I wanted voters to be more accountable for putting forth logical, reasonable arguments. He is not helping in that cause at all.
Yeah, he's not.
He doesn't think before he says anything. He sticks his foot in his mouth for no reason half the time. Because most of the time, nobody would really give a shit if he didn't start bringing shit up. Doesn't care about science, logic at all. And his voters, I'm looking over here instead of you because I'm just enamored with his fucking tweets, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't,
I fear for what he's doing to the culture, because you mentioned like the wall thing. It immediately made me think to this image I saw of the news. I can't remember where he was talking, but like I saw these like kids wearing like that border wall shirt, and they must have been like teenagers or something. They were not adults, and I was like, what the fuck is he doing to the youth of America? Where you have teenagers wearing this build the wall shirt, and they were all together like a fucking wall. It was kind of cool, but. It was a cool visual, I'm not gonna lie, but
it's creative. I give him that, but shit, oh man.
But I mean, they were kids, right? And I point to the bad sense of intellectualism in this country. He's spreading it to these fucking kids too, because we need younger and younger for people to start thinking about this. I think part of the reason I wasn't as politically motivated when I was younger is because in school we just didn't really talk about it very much. I mean, to the extent that we talked about politics, it was more of a historical thing, like maybe pretty much the founding era and stuff, the creation of the drafting of the Constitution and shit like that. It always seemed like a thing of the past. And I think that's a problem in this country. We don't really teach our kids to think about politics at all until they're adults, and then you're just kind of expected to start thinking about it. when it was never particularly important before that.
Yeah, no. I would say even thinking back to me back in school, we had civics class, but it was more to teach you, okay, you have the Constitution, we have laws. These are what these laws in the Constitution mean. This is what this branch is. This is what that branch is. And okay, now you have an understanding of what these things are. But not, again, it wasn't any talk about, like, you know, even when you think about it, you didn't really get a lot of talk about past cases unless it pertained to the subject matter. Like Brown versus Education only came up during because it was, you know, Black History Month, and that was just something to talk about on Black History Month, not necessarily a point of giving an example of how, you know, the court system can help develop and, you know, shape laws that allow for different things that can benefit people. It was just like, oh yeah, we had this case. This is what allowed Black people to go to school, have unsegregated schools, you know, not be segregated.
Yeah. I don't really know what I'm arguing for. Part of me wants to say that kids should learn more about modern politics, but, you know, with political tensions, that can be rough too. But yeah, I saw some like little YouTube video where they were asking about
you know, it's kind of funny too, because as religious as this country is, I feel like just like how they don't necessarily want you to teach religion in school, I think politics kind of falls that way, not because they don't necessarily feel like you shouldn't know, but because there might be things that they may not want you to know or to question. You know, because if they did religion, you know, what happens if you get a kid like you who's going to question something? That's not good. I mean, I know a lot of people get mad because they were like, you should have religion just because there's other religions and you want to be, you know, respectful to them. That shouldn't count. This is a Christian country, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people making that argument don't realize that part of it too is because you can get a lot of blowback, and you have a lot of smart kids, especially these days, who can discern between things and might question certain things and cause, you know, controversy in another way. So it's just better just to leave that can of worms out of the school system and let it be taught at home. Probably that's probably part of the reason.
Fair enough. I mean, there is generally a motivation to not have kids talk about it because I don't want to say it helps indoctrinate them because people don't like that word, but I think it's appropriate most of the time. You know, I mentioned my little cousin in one of those little stories that I don't think has ever been challenged on her religious views. You know, a better example, evolution. I think evolution is taught in the most stupid way in most schools, and I know that because I've seen people who argue with it, and their arguments are just fucking stupid across the board. Like, there'll be questions that have obvious answers that scientists have talked about for decades, or there'll be these non-starters like, well, evolution is just a theory. If you make that argument, you don't know what the fuck a theory means in science then. Like, I don't want to get too far into the science right now, but there are these questions people have about evolution that we have pretty decent answers for, but we don't teach it very well in school because of a religious motivation not to. Same thing with politics. If you don't teach it to them, they're going to just start conjecturing their own bullshit eventually. But yeah, I fear for what Trumpism will do to our culture moving forward. And that's even aside from I fear for what presidents will be like moving forward from this. Like I'm hoping that somehow we'll just magically return to like a state of seriousness and government will be not fucking crazy all the time. But not that there was no craziness before. I don't mean it like that. But
I get what you mean. You don't want the frame like the whole should The Rock run in 2020 type stuff. Which may happen. That's sad. Oh, we're gonna have although that would be kind of funny to see the president like hit like somebody with the people's elbow.
I mean, he is charismatic, but I remember, I think somebody might have asked me what the good thing about Trump being elected was once, and I was like, he showed that pretty much anybody can fucking do it. So I'm thinking of I remember like on Skype or something, I put up a message like, I'm thinking about running for president when I'm old enough because, like, if this motherfucker can do it, apparently anybody can do it. Like, they always say, you can be anything you want, even president. And I always thought that was bullshit. And then Trump came through. It's like, all right, I guess it's not bullshit because you can apparently be a fucking lunatic and still be president.
Yeah,
he's inspired me to run.
And please, anybody with any type of sanity, run. At this point, I'm actually willing to sacrifice knowledge of the job, the ability. You don't even have to speak. Just prove that you're not as crazy as he is. Pass the psychological test. That's all I ask. Please, somebody help me. Help me, please. But with that, let's end this.
Sure.
Again, happy Halloween, everybody. Hope we make your holiday bright. Luckily for you guys, this will be posted at night, so you'll be already good and drunk and full of candy. But then we probably make you throw it all up out of fear and anger. So you're welcome. You're welcome.
Stuff wasn't good for you anyway, right? You don't want all the candy in your system. That's a lot of calories.
Exactly. We helped you purge all the poisons from your body. So we've done you a public service. You're welcome. So any closing thoughts on the whole matter before we go?
I feel like I'm leaving more depressed than I came in, which is kind of...
And I kind of apologize because I kind of like... I just took this from being like, it's like this was like watching It, which is kind of creepy. And then I just took it and turned it into Saw. So, which is just like disgusting and just...
I admire it because one of my main arguments was like, no matter what happens with this president, we're still not in a good state. And you're the first person who's actually took that and really fucking ran with it and made it a lot worse.
Yeah, I tried. I tried to be an influence. It's not always positive. So, but yeah, that's going to do it for this episode of The Reason Reborn. Thank you for everybody who watched. We appreciate it. Make sure to check us out every Tuesday. I am about to start posting on Podbean, so look for the link to Podbean. I'm going to tweet it out. I'm going to put it in the description and everything. I just got to purchase the package on payday because we don't make money off of this. But if you want to support, there is a Patreon page for Wise Guy Gaming, Sports, and Entertainment that you can help us so we can work on doing some things like creating a website, which is something I would love to do, so we can write articles and things like that for you guys and keep you up to date that way.
You don't want me to write shit, but
I mean,
I don't write articles. I write books, but
that's fine. You could be the editorial guy, which is fine. You know how I am too. I have a hard time limiting myself with writing too, but I just want to keep growing this and building this, hopefully, so I could pay this man too, because he deserves to be paid. He does a great job. This is the first podcast. He's doing a wonderful job.
Oh, yeah, I'm fucking good.
So, yeah.
But
yeah,
you should plug your
hashtag pay cardiac. That's what we put that all over Twitter.
I'm gonna take that into work tomorrow. When are you gonna pay cardiac, bro? You should plug you're doing the National Game Day on Saturday.
Yeah. Yes, this Saturday I'm doing a charity event. God help me. From November 4th, 8 a.m. to November 5th, 8 a.m. It's 25 hours technically because of the daylight savings time. What we do is on National Game Day, a bunch of gamers, a bunch of board game players, all people who game of any kind all over the world are going to be playing games to try to raise well, not the world, but in North America. No, world, because I think they've actually reached out internationally too with this in some cases. But people are going to be playing games for the Children's Miracle Network, which helps to raise money for Children's Hospital, in particular in North America. If you're in Canada, United States, Mexico, and you have a Children's Hospital in your area, you can use that as your flagship hospital, and you can game and try to raise money in honor of it for Children's Miracle Network. All money goes straight to them. I'm trying to raise $250 myself. Would love to raise $1,000. That would be awesome. But I'm going to be sitting here in this chair. It's going to be a little cleaner back here. I'll probably have a green screen and all that, and spruce this place up finally.
You gonna be streaming on what, Twitch or whatever?
Yeah, it'll be on Twitch TV. It's twitch.tv/BlackMagus, BLAKMAGUS, all one word. I'll make sure to put that link in the description as well. It's going to be tweeted out. Come sit with me. If you can donate, donate. If you can't, just cheer me on. Promote the link, whatever you can do. It would be appreciated, especially if it's around 4 a.m. because I'm going to need the help. If you're up at 4 a.m. on November 5th, please come say hi and try to keep me up and keep me alert because I'm going to be out of my fucking mind by that time.
Man,
it's worth it. It's worth it.
Probably try to be there some of the day, so maybe you can harass me in chat. I could probably couldn't be on his stream or whatever, but maybe I'll be playing like some shitty thing locally here in solidarity.
whatever helps. Please do stimulate my mind and keep it awake, keep it from going nuts. Because I don't want to be bouncing on the walls and you guys were like, "Why is this guy dancing around in a dress or something like that?"
Because 12 hours in, he started drinking for some reason.
No, I don't drink on that day. If I drink, it's done. I'm not making it. I am definitely not making it if I drink because, yeah.
Yeah, come on through. Watch him get wrecked in whatever game he's going to play.
Oh, my God. It's going to be so fun. I'm going to be playing some RPGs, too, so I know I'm going to get frustrated at times with the boss battles. So it's gonna, but it's gonna be fun. It's all for charity and it's all good fun. So, thank you again. We will be back next Tuesday, hopefully with more cheery news. It's a political show. You know that's not gonna happen.
Is it true?
Just get used to this until we find better leaders. Yeah. Maybe we'll do some international news. Let's talk about German politics. They seem
we're gonna be too busy talking about abortion.
Oh shit! God damn it! We done went from depressing to just like suicidal. Oh my god! Okay. Hey, you guys want to feel better about yourselves? Listen to us talk about politics and realize that you're in a better place. The state of this country's political status is. Oh my god! This is gonna be fun. Anyway. Thank you again. Appreciate you for coming through. We'll see you next time on The Reason Reborn. Everybody have a good one.
Peace.